Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, as part of our special coverage of Austin Film Festival's 26th year, I chat with filmmaker Par Parekh about his new web series The Happy, finding the beauty in life and defining the tone of a comedy. It's a great interview, and I hope you enjoy.
So, the short film pilot episode, however you want to phrase it, those terms growing so meaningless in these years, is so much funnier than I thought it would be. I expected a high maintenance kind of bemused, oh, isn't life silly kind of thing, which I don't mean that to. I love high maintenance. The humor in the Happy is. It's almost to a Mr. Bean level in terms of the quick cuts and the ways that you accentuate the humor, but then also your character just being not necessarily mute, but nobody really gives him a chance to say anything. They just run with assumptions, and then they're 5 steps ahead, and he's like, oh, shit, I guess we're doing this. Can you talk a bit about not just wanting to write a slice of life, fish out of water-ish kind of humor, but then wanting to make sure that you dial or drive towards the joke in every aspect. As director, as editor, the timing of this is so important to how the humor works. Can you talk a bit about the gestation of the project and then realizing it?
Sure. Those are all very good questions and a lot to unpack there. Thank you for noticing all those things because you kind of nailed it. So the large aspect of it, which kind of addressed every question you asked there, was, we're dealing with a quote-unquote serious topic of kind of racial assumptions, and I just was a little tired when I started off that the way these themes are often handled are so seriously. And I said, what's the opposite of serious and didactic and finger-wagging? I go, well, very silly. We can teach lessons in an empathetic, loving, silly way. And I, as a human and as an artist and as a watcher of things, love highbrow and love lowbrow. And I hate middlebrow. So I like the extremes of those things. So when I sat down to work on it, it was like, all right, it's difficult enough to do something that is a slice of life of your own life. Let's push it to abstraction a little bit. That's going to make an audience respond to it because they don't feel like they're being lectured at. So I love comedy. I love Buster Keaton, Mr. Bean. I love Monty Python. I love things that are very, very silly but have points to them in a lot of ways and have big hearts. Buster Keaton is kind of probably my biggest influence in that realm. So I think when I set about to do it, I go, well, if we have a silent character, a lot of those jokes have to be visual. Those are my favorite things in cinema. And whenever I sit down and write in anything or storyboard anything or direct anything, it's what can I tell visually and as rhythmically as possible. So I almost look at a film as a composition of music. It's like I look at it, I'm like, I'm writing a song here. I want the audience to feel this here. I need to build up to this joke and then drop and then be a little silly here and then have a moment of empathy here. Just riding the waves of the emotional waves that the audience is going to be feeling and then trying to make it funny the whole time. But if you think about it too, it seems on its surface level, this is kind of the highbrow part if you choose to go here. It seems on the surface level just, we're making fun of LA New Age folks. But the more you think about it, you're like, oh, wait, my character, which is, I know it's absurd to call myself in third person, but I have to because my character there doesn't speak and I talk a lot. Yeah. So he's weird too. He's broken up with his girlfriend and wants to go to hug therapy. Like, that's a bizarre thing for somebody to do. It's like, I just want hugs. And he's willing to try this out in the same way she thinks he's a past life regression coach. It's like they're both kind of nuts in this way. And you realize, oh wait, all he wants is a hug because he's sad because of a breakup. All she wants to do is feel emotionally kind of sound because Fleming left her. So they're kind of both on the same page. So that way, if you choose to look at it on a slightly deeper level, it's like, it's all about empathy and understanding. We're not just making fun of these people. So that's kind of how the rhythms of it came across. Like, I want the audience to feel this way. How do we plant the jokes so they land in a certain way? And so when we storyboarded it, when I was writing it, it was kind of like, let's build up to those jokes. Let's let the audience have a little peace of mind and some quiet. But let's also try to make it as silly as possible, so it doesn't feel like we're teaching a lesson.
The sound foley that you use to accentuate some of the jokes, I've seen that used where it tips it too far, where the underlying material isn't silly enough to bear the weight of the extra little spin on it. And I didn't feel that here. It really feels all of a piece. Was there any work that you had to do to beef up the jokes or to make the underlying material match the Buster Keaton type of silliness you wanted?
Well, in terms of the sound design, that's a very good notice. That was the one aspect, because a lot of it was storyboarded and played out pretty much exactly how I wanted it in my head and was storyboarded out. And then when I went in and did the sound design, I went too far in the first cut. I definitely went, and it was something that I noticed. I go, this is now a little too silly. And it took me a second to figure out, was it my performance? Was it the visual gags? And then there was a day of finding the right perfect balance of just enough of the Foley and the sound design, so it kind of brought it to the cartoon level, but wasn't a cartoon, but not so low and so unrecognizable that it felt like we were trying something that we weren't accomplishing. And that was a really tough balance to find in the edit, but I think we found it.
It's a small thing, but I can't imagine on a small budget what it was like to work with an animal.
Well, let me tell you this.
Gobbles is cute, but how was working with the dog and a beef rib?
Let me tell you something. This was an independent, micro-budget production. And the most expensive line item in the budget, and the only person that got paid, was the dog. And there was a reason behind this, because you think I was like, we're dealing with a really tight indie shoot. We got 6 hours in a location, and if the dog doesn't deliver on these, and there were specific actions that the dog had to do, as you notice in it. I have lots of friends with dogs. Like, no, my dog is really well behaved. Like, we can't wait around to make this happen. So I said, let's hire a professional Hollywood dog. I work in the business. Cher is a brilliant actor. My crew was absolutely wonderful and brilliant. But I knew they can deliver. There was a big question mark on Friends dogs, though. That was the biggest question mark in the whole process, and I'm glad we spent the money on that because Goebbels delivered, or Gobble, depending on if you're Astrid or if you are an outside audience.
It makes your past life joke so much funnier.
I know, it's a good little guy, but delivered in every way. The trainer was wonderful, was in and out within 4 hours, and just kind of nailed all those pieces. Like, if we use my friend's dog, this would not. We're taking 2 days. We might not have gotten. Or could have fallen asleep. Let me tell you, always work with professionals, even animals.
Professional dogs is the way to go. In terms of your work that you've done, the way that you knew this crew and had people to do your own project like this, you've done fashion video work, music video work. I'm going to try to not make the whole rest of the interview about Shuggie Otis, but holy shit.
Shuggie Otis was an amazing interview.
Can you talk a little bit about your career outside of this project, how you've stayed in film or how you've gotten into the industry to a point that you want to make your own stuff? Sure.
I think this is mine is a good life lesson in just doing it and trusting yourself in a lot of ways. I was raised, Hindu. My parents are immigrants from India, and I was a good Indian at first. I had 3 majors in college: film, philosophy, and biology.
Science career.
Yeah. And I started. I wasn't actually on the bench, but I worked in a neurobiology lab, thinking I was going to go to med school right out of college, and then I got back into movies. And I was blessed that I went to a very good school for film too, Wesleyan University in Connecticut, and it's the community that's there was really, really strong. So when I worked in the lab and I got out of it, first, I have to really give a shout out to my parents too, because most Indian American parents, first gen with their first gen kids, would not be supportive of something like this. And I'm not going to say they fully understood it at first, and maybe they don't even understand it now, but they've been incredibly supportive. part of that was I just said, I'm a weirdo artist. That's what I was, but I didn't know that was a word for it until I went to college and went out. And even then, I didn't use the A word until a few years ago. I said, I'm a filmmaker. I was a film editor. So my career was very, very strange insofar as I started as an associate editor on an old film professor's documentary about Liberia. And those 3 majors I had were indicative of my entire life. I'm just one of these guys who just loves everything. You know, it's like, teach me more stuff. I want to learn more stuff. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. It's all storytelling and learning and interacting with humanity. Right? All of that is what it is. So you're suddenly like, oh, I got to tell a story about Liberia. That's a great deep historical subject. I got to do that. Oh, I'm working on fashion shoots. This is great. I got to translate models who don't really work in motion, and I have to like work with them to make them move properly so the audience feels a certain thing. I was hired by the government of Haiti to shoot kind of internal videos for them for the World Economic Forum in Davos. So I went down there for a month and was helicoptered around and shooting really amazing small villages, beaches, and I'm embedded in these places. I'm, again, connecting with humanity and getting to tell stories. And at a certain point, and I was helping friends out with their scripts. In 2008, I worked with Ben Zeitlin on a short film called Glory at Sea. I co-wrote and produced that. And that was when I said, we just started to say, oh, I love making fiction again. I forgot about this. Well, then I kind of went back to New York and was kind of forging my own path, but still was afraid of using the A word, saying, it's okay for me to tell my own stories. I was shooting in the Himalayas, a documentary, at 17,000 feet, looking over at Mount Everest, and I said, it's very, very cold. Came back to New York, and I said, I'm done with the cold, moved out to L.A., and thankfully, because of the encouragement of my friends and the community that I had built over those 15 years, and I can't emphasize that enough, we are not alone in this industry. Even if you're alone with a page as a writer, which is a very solitary endeavor, it requires a community and a village to make a film, to make anything, to be an artist, and embracing that and having a supportive, kind community is wonderful. And that community pushed me, said, Par, it's your time. You got to be telling your own stories. So I came out here. But I didn't have to go to L.A. to make a story about me in L.A. I was writing another wonderful project, and a lot of it was trying to think about how to work with, being there style character. You know,
that Chancey Gardner comes across for me very it's definitely there. Being there popped through my mind when I was watching it. So
it's funny. Chancey's a huge influence on me, but that movie is a huge influence on me. But I was looking to do an entirely different film. And then when I first moved to LA, I looked the way I do, and I got a lot of crazy things happen to me. People just assumed I was a guru and throw themselves on me, would ask me what it was like being Hindu, so much closer to spirituality. This one woman asked me, she goes, she crossed the street, she goes, this is my 3rd day in LA. She goes, I just want 4 simple things: your mind, your body, your heart, and your soul. Your aura is so powerful. It's like, whoa,
what do you
can't
even do with that?
You just say thank you and walk away. It's what do you do with that? So I started to just catalog these stories, and my friends go, these are good, you should do this. And then suddenly I go, you know what this is weird, because I actually don't get a chance to say anything. They're projecting everything on me. I'm thinking about Chancey Gardner. Wait a minute, what if I don't speak, and what if I'm just a vehicle for that stuff? And then that kind of married together. And it was really the final push of a friend of mine who produced The Happy, Kelsey McManus, who was a teacher in Chicago and came out, and now she runs a karaoke van in LA. She's really badass. I like ragtag crews. Work with friends, work with people who you know can pull it off, but ragtag crews are the best. And she goes, Par, make this. Let's make this in 2 months. And we just whipped it together, and then that's kind of how we landed where we are now. And it's all been wonderful since. Now we've got a lot of projects in development, and I'm making my own stuff. So just be patient. And I really think the big thing is getting over your own fear and limitations and trusting the community around you when they say that you've got it, you know?
There's been something for me in the last year of trying to, I've always written and I've always been creative, but normalizing the idea that screenwriter is a thing you can do, or that these jobs are things you can do. And you meet enough people and eventually you realize they're just people. You're a person. And you can do this. It's just a job. It's interesting to hear that even working on the industry side of it, that you could still have this wall in your mind of like, well, I make films for other people, but like I don't make my story. I graduated college with an art degree, and then went into a graphic design job because it calmed my grandparents down. And anyone that started to go, well, they're called starving artists, I could be like, I do graphic design. Like, oh, well, that's fine. That's a salary job that I've heard of. I can put you in this bucket, and now I know you're safe. And it was only a very recently that it was this year that I stood in front of a whole room of people and got asked like what I do for a living, and no credits to my name, but said screenwriter.
Good for you, man.
And it was terrible. Like, I had an immediate, like, someone's going to yell faker from the back of the room, and I'm going to vomit. And nobody did. In fact, people came up afterwards and were like, cool, anything I can read? And like, yes, I do. Oh, shit, what do I do now?
You know what helps with that? Because I identify so deeply with that. Sorry to interrupt.
No. But
I grew up in a Gujarati family. Gujarati is a state in the west of India. Pretty conservative, pretty judgmental. We're all business people, so it's like the classic cliche of the Indian family pushing the child to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, business person. That was very real in my family. But because of that, you just don't see artists. You don't see screenwriters. You don't see filmmakers as a way of life.
Yeah.
It's always, to your point, the word starving is attached to it. It's like, oh, it's a hobby. And the F word, failure, is attached. You're failing at life. That's not a real thing. And suddenly, you start to realize through therapy and friendship that, this is a hang-up that I have that is not based in kind of the reality of the world, just in the reality of the world that I grew up in. Suddenly you start to meet other artists, families that are artists, and I met friends whose parents were artists too, and they go, there was no failure or shame or negativity attached to it. There was a way of life. And once I embraced that artist with a capital A and saying, I am this, and there's no shame attached to it, there's pride attached to it.
Yes.
It's not easy. It doesn't make it any easier, but it does lift a lot of the burden that we put on ourselves that prevents us from actually doing the work. Because inertia is our enemy and our biggest foe. And saying, I need to sit down and write, I need to do this thing, and inertia gets in the way. And one of the biggest weights, the largest boulder on our soul with that is usually family stuff, or the voices in our head saying, well, you can't do that. An artist is a failure, an artist isn't a real thing. Once that's gone, then it's just regular stuff like, man, I'm tired, man, I need to pay rent, man, I need, it's like, man, is this character good enough? Man, is the story good? It's not about an outside projection thing.
Yeah, I found there was a recentering that had to take place of me making it okay that this is a thing I do, and really normalizing that I was going to write things and make art and be bold about it, and that recentering my confidence and like, no, take a deep breath, this is what we do, it's okay to say it, I'm an adult, took away a desperation that was keeping other people from connecting to my projects. I felt like whereas before I might have been looking to them for their permission for me to finish this, and now I'm just telling them about it. It's a world. It's maybe one step to the left of where I was, but it's a world of difference in terms of the point of view.
Yeah, it's like it's like the whole scientific notion of degrees. If you're 0.5 degrees off here, the trajectory can be 100 miles away. So you're in a different place. But it's the small things. This is a thing in terms of that inertia. It's a big, big deal for me that I learned, and I try to teach everybody just by action. An example is you can easily and often get in your own way saying, I can't start this thing, I can't write this thing because I'm not a screenwriter, because don't have enough hours in the day, because I don't have this and that. Once I have a week off, I can start. Once my parents are off my back, then I can start. Yeah. And you realize the smallest change, as you pointed out, makes a difference. Just waking up in the morning saying, I'm a screenwriter. That's it. Suddenly your day is different. Or, I'm just going to spend 20 minutes writing right now. I don't need 5 hours to write, and I don't need a week to write. Holy moly. Yeah. Your life changes.
Talking to people who are professional screenwriters who then have kids.
Yes.
I'm like, all right, well, the way I used to write does not work anymore. I now have to, I'm not a morning person, but now I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning because that's the time, You have to stop being precious about it. Yes. So much of my work happens hovering half out of the chair because for some reason my brain is like, we should get up and go do literally anything else right now. Like, let's just pace around. Good. And I have another voice in my head that's like, 5 more minutes, finish this sentence, just finish this sentence. And I'll write 30 or 40 more minutes, half-ass up out of the chair, and
Whatever it takes
to trick your brain
takes
into getting around that hump.
That's the phrase I use all the time. Everything we do is to trick our brain. Our brain is our own worst enemy. We overthink everything, and we tell ourselves that we can't do things.
Yeah, ridiculously mean shit.
Oh, so mean all the time. But we trick it. I have so many tricks, and my favorite thing is, and not every trick works for everybody, which is why it's interesting when, a lot of students and a lot of people new to the industry, a lot of people new to writing, and I did this at a certain point, where I look to people for advice, like, what is your process? But having been an artist for so long, I just kind of figured, like, I got my own weird process. I don't know what it is. It's all alchemical. But I love hearing other people. It's one of my favorite things, is hearing other people's processes, not so I can emulate it, but so I can pilfer, take bits and pieces of it.
Why is that working for you? Yeah.
It's how's that work for you? And I love taking it. I just heard one yesterday at a panel, and they were talking about how in the morning, well, at the end of the day, one of the tricks they do, and this is a high-level screenwriter, done a lot of, superhero movies and things like that, very successful screenwriter, and goes, I have to trick my brain all the time. So one of the tricks that I do is, if I'm at the end of the day, and I see what the end of this scene is, and I've got half a page left on this scene, I'll just think it through and stop. So in the morning, I start writing right away, and I don't have to. I just know what it is, and I remember it, and then I finish that scene, and then the inertia's out of the way, and I keep going. It's like, ooh, that's a good trick. I'm going to try that.
I had somebody tell me it was one of the writers in the new Cowboy Bebop, and it just wrote on Dark Crystal, and she loves having written, hates writing, like everybody. My friend, can I just interrupt? My friend says the only thing worse than writing is not writing. Yes, yes, and. Vivian wakes up, she used to write it one way, has kids now, writes a different way. She gets up at 4:30 in the morning, basically lets her brain come conscious already at the keyboard, so that her brain's like, oh, well, shit, I guess this is just life. We just do this. Okay, I guess we're writing. And then, her house wakes up at about 6 in the morning or so, and then it's over. Like, her time is not her time anymore. But she basically, if there's any distraction, her brain will be like, screw writing. But if she just kind of wakes up into it and her brain's like, oh, well, I guess this is the thing we do. And she gets about an hour and a half of writing out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then that's part of tricking the brain. Whatever works. Everyone, there's the thing that people all around the country use, the Julia Cameron thing, the morning pages. It's very useful technique and very good trick. Even if you don't do that, the lesson to take from that is the routine of it. That's a brain trick. That's a brain trick. It's just like, if I do this over and over again enough, my brain will just be habituated to it.
Yeah.
And you just like, and it's a good habit.
So it starts to feel weird if it's that time in the morning and your butt's not in the chair.
Exactly. And it's just like, find those little tricks. I realize that I have the same thing where, when you're doing so many things and you're writing, you're directing, you're producing, you're editing, and then you're also in looking for funding all the time, so you're in meetings.
You've got something else that needs done that would be more fun than this scene.
Oh,
right
God,
now.
yeah. Or even if it's not more fun, it's like something else needs to be done.
Yeah.
And the immediate sense of accomplishment is more satisfying.
My house is only clean because of deadlines.
I have a lot of writing to do if my place is spotless.
It's spotless.
It's
yes.
totally spotless. I scrub the shit out of everything.
Yeah.
And
my baseboards are wiped down. I missed a deadline.
Oh, exactly. It's like, oh, what do you do? It's like, clean. It's like, oh, don't clean. So one of the things, I used to hate coffee shops because I don't drink coffee. I only started drinking caffeine a year ago. I'm a tea man. And now I love them because I'm forced to get out of the house. I go for a walk, which is rare in LA. So I walk 20 minutes to a coffee shop. And it's hard because I'm very social, so I end up meeting friends there, and then I have to talk to them. So then I'll have to change coffee shops, go to a new coffee shop where I don't know anybody. Headphones come on. I turn the phone off and leave it in the car. Makes a biggest difference of my life was, and again, it might work for you, might not work for you, but I wouldn't even call it the addiction, but it might be a little bit, but the need to have the phone around all the time suddenly becomes a new major distraction. Like, I can clean the apartment all the time, getting out of the house, solve that. Oh, I got to get on the phone because, I got to pay that bill, I got to get this plane ticket to go to this film festival, I got to do all this. Oh, a text just came in from my producer, I should answer that. Turn it off, leave it in the car. The other thing I do is I turn the phone off, turn it off at night, an hour before I sleep, and it charges in the other room. And then for an hour after I wake up, I don't even turn the phone on. Changed my life.
I've had somebody phrase that to me as waking up and looking at your phone is waking up and being in someone else's day.
Yes.
and then your day's gone.
Being in a million other people's days at the same time.
Whatever you were going to do is backburnered already, and you did that immediately when you looked at your phone, and it changed the way that I viewed my electronic devices when I first wake up.
Also, what helps too with the electronic devices, but also the reward setting. Again, all old classic psychology tricks. Like, all right, I'm really hungry. I'm a chocolate addict. I love chocolate. I love chocolate more than. No, it's my second most favorite thing. My nephews and nieces are my first most favorite thing. But chocolate is like...
They were made of chocolate. Then
they're made of chocolate, they would be gone. I'm sorry, babies. I love you, but you'd be eaten. But so I will just say, I'll be sitting at the keyboard, and I'm like, God, I really want some chocolate. I get that craving. I go, all right, I'm going to get through one more page, and then I'm going to treat myself to that. It's such simple tricks you use on children, but our brains are children.
My brain will usually volunteer some TV show that I'm an episode behind on that I wish I'd watched. And I couldn't have thought of it an hour ago, but now that we're in the middle of writing this, boom, my brain's like, hey, weren't we going to watch such and such? And then, like, okay, fine, that's the reward then.
See, I'm blessed/cursed with, I can't watch TV if I'm writing because I feel guilty. I'm like, I should be doing that. I should be making something. So I end up doing, which would actually be more helpful and useful if I were to watch TV in some abstract kind of way. I just end up doing crossword puzzles galore. I am so procrastinating if there are 100 crosswords there. I was like, oh man, what are you doing?
I think the TV episode works for me a little bit because of that. I get to if I'm writing a spec script or something, I will try to watch something that I'll at least try to make my time suck fold back into what I'm doing. So like at least watch an episode of whatever I'm trying to spec or something like that.
Right.
But that guilt of I see how this is assembled. I see the structure of the episode I'm watching. Why am I not doing this right now? I have an unfinished version of this in the other room right now. By the end of a 45-minute episode, I'm so antsy that I've got to get back to the project or I'm miserable for the next episode if I sit and binge.
I'm going to start doing it because, now that you mention it, I did it last time. I was procrastinating. I was like, you know what? Let me throw on an episode of, God, I forget what, oh, you know what it was? It was like but it was a masterpiece. It was Chernobyl. I was like, let me throw on an episode of Chernobyl. And of course, I was so motivated by the end, partly because I was worried. I'm like, I'm not this. Every time I do this, I feel guilty, and I felt the opposite. It was this double whammy of feeling antsy, and also being like, that was brilliant. I want to make stuff.
I see how the brilliance in that works. I could do that.
Yeah, it's totally motivational. Which that's kind of always look at those things as aspirational. Which it's funny. That's just how you got to do stuff. Whenever I go to the movie theater, sit down and watch a movie, I just feel better. Do things that make you feel better because that helps your writing. It just does. Go on a hike. Go on a walk. Go watch movies. Go dancing.
The weird other side of that for me recently has been noticing things that I've always done that I assume made me feel better and don't.
Yeah.
Because there's a short list of those as an adult that I think, I've always done this since I was a kid, and let's go get some cookies or something, and then I'll feel better. But I'm noticing as an adult now, like, that actually didn't recharge me at all. Maybe I should scratch that off this list.
Right.
And
let me recreate this list.
It's been a little entertaining this past year to try to figure out what things just aren't working for me, and that it is totally okay to drop them.
Isn't that a big revelation? It's like growing up is great,
Yeah.
I love getting older.
I don't have to know everybody I've ever met. I don't have to stay friends with everyone. I don't have to keep every habit I ever developed.
You just let go of some stuff, and you part of that lesson for me too has also been being kind to myself and forgiving myself, which I was very, very bad at doing. And I think that's one of those habits on my list that I would add, which is not a specific one like a cookie, which is my favorite word and my favorite food, FYI, chocolate chip cookies. One of my missions in life is to create the world's greatest chocolate chip cookie, and I'm very close, and one day I'll bake them for you. But being kind to yourself is something on that list, saying, oh man, I only wrote half a page today. I didn't do, or it's 10 a.m. I haven't started anything. A day is lost. I'm such a terrible person, which I would do all the time. It's like, this is a bad habit, because in some weird way, maybe it's because of my upbringing. Who the hell knows? It's just like, you didn't do it. You failed at the day. Shame on you. It's like, no. I'm off by 2 hours. Let me start now. It sounds like generic woo-woo shit, but it's for real. It works every single time. Where it'll be 10 a.m. and I'll say, well, day is wasted. Like, it's 10 a.m. You idiot. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but because you're an hour off of the schedule you wrote yesterday, well, now it's a wash. It's crap. It's crap.
Just be nice to yourself. And sometimes being nice to yourself is like, you know what? You only got through 2 pages today, and you wanted to get through 3. That's okay. Go dancing tonight. Shake it out. Or go for a long hike. Shake it out, and then start again in the morning. It's gonna be fine.
As far as The Happy goes, what's your plan? What's next for it?
Well, that's what we're in the process of right now. Austin Film Festival has been absolutely wonderful for it. I'm psyched we have our screening today. And we were finalists, which was exciting in competition. And one of the exciting things that has come from showing it to a lot of South Asian people and, Indian Americans, Pakistani Americans, here at the festival and other places, nephews, nieces, cousins, is the reaction they've had to it has been so direct and emotional, which I was not expecting. It was kind of my experience, and I think, this is because I have a beard and long hair. And most Indian Americans are like, that's my life. This is so funny. I get it. So I really want to get it out to the world, because we are holding on to it with a password protecting link, because we are developing it as a 30-minute and took meetings for it, and now we're going to keep it as a web series for now, our digital series, and release it in I'd say a month and a half or so, and try to find the best strategy specifically to get Indian American eyes on it, because at this point, because I have other projects too, The Happy means so much to me, and that might be my second or third project. Another lesson I had to learn is don't go in with the thing you have 2 or 3 things going on at the same time. And so there are other projects I love as well, as much as The Happy. But when that comes out, I genuinely feel like it will find this audience of Indian Americans and also just Americans in general who, because it's such a broad comedy, that anyone can accept it, that we'll be able to then release more episodes and shoot and get out more episodes. I have a 10-episode arc for this season of just these vignettes. I also have this world created. That's actually how it originated. I invented this whole world called The Happy, where there are 2 things I learned when I moved to LA. Everyone loves healing crystals, and everyone believes in some absurd conspiracy theory by some mysterious they don't want you to know that the Chinese are trying to take over our children by poisoning our toys, which is why all the toys are made in China. Whoa, that's some intense stuff, right? And I'm like, but who's they? So I created this entire world where there's this giant wellness industrial complex run by a crystal magnate called Jindal Crystals. And there's this absurdist world in which the Par character gets...
They're in the animation at the start of the episode.
You see pieces of them, because we're starting to build out. It's in the poster. You see elements of that in there. Imagine Big Lebowski with a little bit of Sorry to Bother You, with a little bit of Life of Brian in there. Okay. So the Par character gets caught up in this crazy crystal conspiracy theory involving a crystal magnet, gets kidnapped by them because they want to use his face, and uncovers this crystal theory. So very Big Lebowski, and Sorry to Bother You. But then also, in the process of that, everyone starts to think he's a guru from India. And he says, I'm not a guru. So they think he's not a guru, N-A-D-A guru, much like Life of Brian, and suddenly has to manage these people. And that is probably season 2 of the arc, and just really excited for that as well. And one of the big things with the show, too, is that I just want to inspire Indian Americans or South Asian kids to be weird. We get put in such a... diversity is something we talk... Diversity and inclusion all the time. It's very important, but important in the broad sense, too. We only talk about diversity and inclusion in terms of race and gender and sexuality. Very important, but identity is so much more than that to me, right? I was not trapped between being an American or in white culture and being Indian in American culture. I was just looking for other artists and weirdos. I didn't care what race they were. So that was my identity and my experience. And so many of the South Asian American shows you see right now just have pretty, and not to knock them, but they're just pretty normal people. It's like Friends, but with brown people. And I want to say, it's okay to be absurdist. It's okay to go Buster Keaton. It's okay to go David Lynch. Because you would never say that Steven Spielberg and David Lynch are the same because they're white dudes. in the same way that I'm not the same as other South Asian filmmakers because we're South Asian. We have very different experiences. So I meet so many of my fellow artists, South Asians, who are like, we're just tired of watching these shows because they're just so normal, and our experiences were nothing like that.
Yeah.
You know, we can make, Fleabag or Lady Dynamite. We can be weirdos too,
Yeah, where's my weirdo Indian kids?
Where's my weirdo? And I know so many of them. That's us. We grew up like that. So that's one of the shows I'm developing too, which is really exciting about that. So it's really fun to kind of say, oh, we have a whole untapped world here that part of what you were asking about earlier is like, that my voice is kind of, I don't want to say important for, but is something new and exciting. And that makes me excited too. So that's one of the things I want to accomplish with The Happy as well.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to get to talk to you again. This is all going to go well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it very much, man.
Everybody should go and find The Happy. It's 9 minutes long. It's hysterically funny. And as soon as it is available to you, everybody should go find this.
Yeah, you can get more information at thehappy.tv and on Instagram at welcome to The Happy. And as soon as this release and stuff, I'll let you know, and it'll be up on there.
Awesome.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.